Found this lawnmower abandoned, taken aback by nature. As you can see, it was sold by a Ford dealer. Yep, that's right. Ford dealer sold a Kubota. Pop the hood open. Oh, look at that. Looks like a small ecosystem that I am disrupting. This is probably a crime in certain wildlife management spots. But not here, because this is the internet and nobody ever gets booked off of there. Whole motor was just absolutely trashed. And so was the surrounding area, so I got a weed eater and whacked all the weeds. Whacked them as best I could. They were really thick, and they had been there for quite some time. Checked the oil to make sure that this motor wasn't completely bricked and it wasn't full of water. Luckily, it was not. Checked the fuel tank. Yep, there's algae in there. Oh no. As you can see inside that tank, it looks like some kind of prehistoric tar that some dinosaurs may or may not have got stuck in. Make sure you drop this fuel filter housing every single time that you take it off. Pull it out and realize that Monica Lewinsky must have gotten a hold of it. Completely sucked down and dry as a bone. Look at that. That's power behind there. That's torque. Throw down the Milwaukee bag to flex on y'all and then attack the insect nests with a screwdriver. There were a bunch of mud dauber nests. I felt like I was mining for a Kubota engine in a clay pit. And as you can see, I kept on pulling more and more vegetation out of this vehicle. I also checked to see if there was any water in the radiator. There was not. Not a drop. But it doesn't need water to run, so that's okay. More mud dauber nests. I don't know why I was so obsessed with these things, but they were everywhere. They were hard to get rid of, and I kept on screwdrivering, and you know what? There's probably still more on there. And I also went in here, and it looked like Narnia when you looked in to this old original battery box with the rare screen still inside. Popped open the air filter. Oh, that looks pretty new. So I just tossed that one back. Had to pull this back plate off to get to the tank to even see what I was looking at. And that was more of a pain than I'd like to admit. Guess I've been watching too much Joe Rogan because I would appear as though I'm a masochist laying in the grass like that. That sucked. It's about this time I realized I wasn't alone. There were ants living in there, crawling around all over this thing. Tried my best to not get bit, although I did fail. Had to go after these straps. That was kind of a big pain. And I also realized that the seat's a little bit too rusted, so I'm not sure how that's ever going to work out, because I am not going to be able to find another one. You know, it got intense here because my hat came off and I just left it. But turned out the tank came from the side, because I had to figure that out off camera. Dump that out into a bucket. Don't want to get the hazmat team on me. And yep, imagine that, there's still algae in the tank even after I dumped it out. Killed all the ants. All of them. Every single one. They're dead. Cleaned out the tank with a rag and a screwdriver. Got myself a new fuel line. Put that little spring on there for tension. Back on the new one. Checked out this fuel filter. Yeah, it's definitely seen better days. It is more plugged up than a trucker after an Arby's binge. Nothing came out of it whatsoever. It's probably still plugged up sitting in the trash right now. Tank was extra hard to get in because I couldn't crack it or break the little nipple off on the bottom, because you know what? If that breaks, I am not going to be able to find another tank. I haven't even seen another one of these motors in quite a while. Put the straps on. I made that look way harder than it actually was. Even on camera, I work slow. But I was fairly hopeful putting the tank back in. I might have rushed a little bit too much because I couldn't figure out how to get the back plate on. There I go, messing with it. Put some fuel in there. Saw if he'd fire up. Putting this darn wheel back on. Yep, needs all four of those is what they tell me. The battery terminals was really bad. Those were all messed up. They were loose and they were rusty and it just wasn't making any connection. Couldn't quite get this thing to fire up. I tried. I don't think it was getting any fuel. As you can see, I had to lean over and hold the battery terminal trying to get this thing to make any connection whatsoever. Yeah, it was just a bad time. Anyway, I was defeated. Came back a few days later, and I had some new tools in my arsenal. Once again, flex on you with the brushed Milwaukee Impact. I like it. I couldn't justify the brushless, I'm sorry. Threw on this new fuel pump. Yep, brand new. That's right, $22 whole for a brand new fuel pump. I can't believe they still make them for this machine. There must be something else that uses these fuel pumps, because there's no way that they're only making it for the 5 of these that are still running around. New fuel line, of course. New electrical connections. And we were pretty much off and ready to go. There I go, making the new fuel line and not putting the new fuel filter into that little fuel filter holder. You know why? Because it was 1/8 of an inch bigger than the holder, and I wasn't going to squeeze it in there because then I'd never be able to get it out right. Yep, that's right. Screw making fuel filters the same size they've been for 40 years. Just screw me right here. Right over the deck of the mower. Yep. Anyway, put the new tire back on. Yep, battery in the battery box, rather. Had to put this new fuel filter in there. Oh yeah. Really had a hard time getting that threaded back on there. I guess I couldn't figure out my rights from my left or what. Either way, I think, I don't know, that one might have been too long. I don't know. Getting to the cigarette lighter glow plug there, because that's supposed to glow red in there with a little heating element, and you can light a cigarette off of it. But as you can see, it didn't crank, so I don't even think the battery was making connection, so it didn't even work. Made sure I was getting fuel all the way up to there, and had to once again hold the battery in a certain way. Got it to crank over a couple times. Couldn't really get it. It was firing off a little bit on starting fluid, but you don't want to put too much starting fluid in these diesels. This ain't a 7.3, you know. Oh, there goes that little wing nut there for the air filter. Good luck finding another one of those. Yep, cranking. Burn that starter up. Those things are like $120, by the way. Pretty sure I've bought a couple of those. Burning them up. But as you can see, it was firing off just a little bit. It just needed some time to figure out what was going on. That injection pump, it was having a hard time. It was like I had awoken it from its long-awaited slumber. You know, it thought its life was done. Thought it made it. But nope, here I come, throwing sparks off of a battery. Making this thing run, or at least trying to. Finally got this thing to fire up. As you can see, I got the OSHA Crocs on. Man, those things are clapped, too. I've had those Crocs for years, and they're still working. Just the throttle. Got the injection pump really going. These are mechanical injections, so sometimes they just take a little while. And, you know, that was the main thing there, getting it to move. I was just pretty ecstatic that that happened. Had to drive it out of the weeds there, which was the goal. I wanted to drive it out of the weeds on flat tires. And so I did. Because I always get what I want. Even when I don't, I make failing look good. Got the little electric pump, filled up the radiator with some water. Turns out it wasn't as low as originally thought. But, you know, hooked up this little Harbor Freight pump here. That was great, by the way. I love that little pump. It's lasted quite some time. Done a lot of stuff. Real satisfying to watch the tires air up like this on time lapse, and it definitely did need some air in the tires. So, you know, put that back in the bag, because if I don't put it back in the bag, then it will surely get lost. We're fired right up, slapped the Milwaukee bag, and we are off back to the shop. And as you can see, I mean, it's driving. May not like it, but it is driving. Covered in moss, mold, and needing repair still. But now I can transport it. And I couldn't push it before because the transmission is hydrostatic. And another thing about hydrostatic transmissions, this one was actually a little bit low on hydraulic oil. So first thing I did was pop off that little safety cover, splash some hydraulic oil in there, made sure I was good, and put it all back together. Next thing I did was I had to get rid of those godforsaken battery terminals that were terrible. Got these ones. These were $10 at Tractor Supply. $10. But you know what? I needed them today. So it's okay to overpay for that stuff sometimes. You know, you're paying for the convenience. Yeah, sir, you're paying for the convenience. Put some dielectric grease on there, made sure that it was nice and greasy and making good connection, because that's one thing I don't like on diesels. Bad battery connections. Got me my $45 bottle of Bactine. You're supposed to do 1 ounce to every 20 gallons. Looking back, this was a lot. I thought I only did a little splash, but rewatching the video, that was actually kind of a lot, and I spilled a lot of it on the ground. If you ever read the warning label on Bactine, it's pretty interesting. It's like, if you swallow it, it's basically a death sentence, is what it sounded like. Had to go over here and hose off this dirty gal. Got the worst microfiber I could possibly find and went to town. This is not a show vehicle. Although some boomers may think that tractors are show vehicles, this one is not. Yes, I've seen the Florida Flywheelers. No, I am not impressed. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit impressed. But this thing really cleaned up nice. The patina really isn't too bad on this. I enjoyed watching it get cleaned up. Spraying the motor there, which ruins it, according to thousands of people on the internet. So that basically just totaled the whole thing out. The video can end right here. But instead, it ends over here, with me backing it out of the shop, and I get to do a small burnout right there. Watch this. Yeah, and I'll hear about that later. Goodbye.